Hello everybody, welcome to the video. My channel name is College Football Frenzy, and today I'm going to be talking about my conference championship predictions for the 2020 college football season. As you can see on the screen, I have some of the logos of the different conferences, mainly the big ones in college football. I'm going to predict every conference championship game, even the smaller ones. I'll give my analysis on it, and I'll talk about maybe possible teams that I don't have in the conference championship games, but could be contenders to at least make it. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it right away. We start out with the SEC. I have Alabama from the Western Division and Georgia from the Eastern Division. So in the SEC, in my opinion, the Eastern Division, it's really a two-team race between Florida and Georgia. I think Georgia's going to beat Florida, and I think they'll beat them out for the spot in the SEC championship game. Alabama, I have Alabama winning the West, but there's definitely going to be more competition in the West. I feel like LSU's okay. They're definitely they're definitely going to decline this upcoming season, but they could still be a challenge to Alabama. Texas A&M might be good. They could be a challenge, and Auburn could be good. So the West is definitely better. I have Alabama from that division. Overall, the SEC is a great conference. This would be a great conference championship, a rematch of the 2018 national championship, and also a rematch of the 2018 SEC championship game. Both were great games. I think this one would be too. Obviously, they play each other in week 3 early on the season. I think it would be a pretty good matchup. Great recruiting classes for both of them, both in the top 5. Great defenses, in my opinion. The only problem for both may be inexperienced quarterbacks or just, quarterbacks that are new to their system, like Georgia and Jamie Newman. He came from Wake Forest, so he might not be used to SEC defenses. And of course, Alabama. There's a good chance it's Bryce Young, and obviously he's coming out of high school. So I have Alabama versus Georgia. Big Ten, I have a rematch. Ohio State versus Wisconsin. So I'm pretty certain that Ohio State's going to get back. It could be Penn State from the East. That would be the other option if they win that whiteout game. So it could be them. But it's really only a two-team race, and I think Ohio State is still head and shoulders above Penn State. So right now, I have them making the Big Ten championship game. In the West, it's wide open, in my opinion. I think Minnesota is still going to be a very good football team. They pretty much have almost all of their best players last year returning, besides maybe like their star running back last year. Teams like Northwestern and Illinois, I don't know necessarily if they'll be very good, but Iowa could pose a challenge. Even though they're losing a lot of their best players, they always can pose a challenge. And maybe even Nebraska. So there are definitely some teams that in the West that could surprise people. I don't think many people had Wisconsin winning the division this past season, and they did. But right now, looking at Wisconsin, they still have a great defense. My one worry is the run game, or just the offense in general. The pass attack isn't great either, but the defense is good. So I think that'll be enough to get them to the Big Ten championship game. The Big 12, a Red River rematch. So obviously they're facing Texas and Oklahoma are facing off early on in the season in 2020. It's a guaranteed rematch in the Big 12 championship game no matter who plays because there's only 10 teams in the conference. And I'm really thinking that Oklahoma is going to make it back. They've pretty much been there almost every year since the Big 12 championship game officially came back. And Texas, they were there in 2018. Last year they had a down season, but if they can avoid the injuries, they should be fine. They have a top 10 recruiting class, and their schedule is manageable. I think even with a 9-3 record, that could get them into the Big 12 championship game. I would give the edge to Oklahoma here, but this could definitely be, it could go either way. It could definitely go either way. Just like, with the SEC championship, Alabama and Georgia, that could go either way. The ACC championship, all right, out of the Atlantic, no question about that. They should just name the division Clemson because that's what it is. Clemson is the division, so definitely Clemson. And from the Coastal, I have North Carolina. I believe this is what most experts are picking for their ACC championship game matchup. You could put Virginia Tech in there. That would be the other option from the Coastal. I think it's down to either UNC or Virginia Tech. I'm going North Carolina. I feel like their schedule's pretty manageable. I feel like they've got great coaching with Mac Brown and a great quarterback in Sam Howell. I think they're going to be pretty good next season. I would definitely give the upper hand to Clemson in this ACC championship game, but North Carolina could definitely give them a challenge, just like they did last year. Pac-12 championship game. All right, so this one might surprise people. From the South, I have Arizona State. Now, that's a big surprise. From the North, Oregon. I think most people are expecting that. Washington could put up a fight if they beat Oregon, but they just, I feel like, have a lot of tough games, and I think they might slip up a couple times. From the South, though, the South Division in the Pac-12, in my opinion, is wide open. I don't think there's one team that's head and shoulders above the rest. I understand USC is going to have a lot of returning talent, but their young talent's going to be terrible in my opinion. Their recruiting class is absolutely terrible, and still overall, I feel like they're inconsistent. They don't have a great coaching staff. And I think Arizona State's going to beat them. Utah's losing some key players. I don't think they'll be as good. And really, after that, not many great teams. There's like Colorado and teams like that in Arizona. So I go Arizona State. They've got a reliable head coach in Herm Edwards, famous for his rant. They beat Oregon last season. They had a tough middle season stretch, but they started out pretty well last season and they ended pretty well. So I have high hopes for them. I think they're going to be a pretty good football team. Now, of course, I would give the advantage to Oregon. That's my main instinct, to give the advantage to Oregon, just because their defense is so good. Their weapons, they have a lot of weapons, and they've got a great coaching staff as well. So I would definitely give the advantage to Oregon, but this could, it could be an exciting game. Arizona State obviously beat Oregon last year, and I think they actually play in the regular season this upcoming season. We'll see. All right, American Athletic. So the American Athletic is a second conference now to not have divisions. The Big 12 has not had divisions for a while now. The American Athletic just got rid of divisions because UConn left, and now they only have 11 teams. So it's just one conference, no divisions, so it's going to be the two best teams. Now, with Mike Norvell leaving, I think Memphis is definitely going to be on the decline. You look at other teams in the American Athletic, teams like USF, Tulsa. I think Tulsa could be a sleeper. No, they were okay last season. They had some close ones, some close losses against teams that were pretty good. Like they almost beat Cincinnati, I believe. They almost beat Memphis. They almost beat Navy, and I believe they actually did they beat UCF. Yeah, they beat UCF, and I think they almost beat SMU as well. So Tulsa could definitely be a sleeper, but I went with Cincinnati versus UCF for now. You could also see Navy in here. That's a possibility, but just the two programs that, in my opinion, have been the most reliable in the American Athletic the past couple of years. Luke Fickle has done a great job with Cincinnati the last few years. Cincinnati last season was a ranked team. And UCF, they had a down season last year, but they still got a pretty good recruiting class, in my opinion. Their schedule's manageable, and I feel like, it's UCF, so I expect them to get back on track this upcoming season. So big game here. I'm excited to see it. They're kind of rivals anyway, and they'll play each other, I believe, in the regular season. So it should be an interesting matchup. I would give the upper hand to Cincinnati, but it could go either way. All right, Mountain West. Kind of like what I said, the ACC, and just calling one of the divisions Clemson. That's what I would do with the Mountain West, because the Mountain Division's pretty much Boise State. That's what it is. It's Boise State. And then the West, it's just whoever. We've seen Fresno State. We've seen Hawaii last year. Hawaii was like I think it was 8-4 or 7-5 or 6-6, something like that, going into the conference championship game. So Hawaii wasn't very good when they played Boise State. I think San Diego State this upcoming season, because they have a fantastic defense. Last year they had one of the best defenses in the nation, and overall I feel like their division is pretty weak. Their schedule's manageable. I like where they're at. They were ranked for a couple weeks during the season last year, so I think they could definitely make some noise. This would be a great matchup, a great defense for San Diego State. Of course, I would give the edge to Boise State, though, because they have the experience and know how to win big games. But, this could go either way. Sun Belt rematch. All right, so last year was Louisiana versus App State, and I have it again this year. The reason is because first of all, the Sun Belt is a small conference, only 10 teams, so there's not many choices to choose from. You look at the Sun Belt, the teams in it are not very good. There are not many great teams. All the teams last year besides Louisiana and App State were pretty bad, and I don't think those programs are going to get any better anytime soon. So it was pretty clear to me it was going to be App State versus Louisiana, especially App State. App State has been doing pretty good lately. Obviously, everybody knows them for beating Michigan, but they've done pretty good in their conference lately. They went 13-1 last year, so that was great. And I think this upcoming season they could be a ranked team again and possibly a New Year's Six Bowl contender. So I like where App State's at. I would definitely give the advantage to them, but Louisiana is a pretty good football team as well. Conference USA, Marshall versus Louisiana Tech. This is probably a surprising one. Conference USA, kind of like the Sun Belt. Actually, it's even more wide open than the Sun Belt. There's really no team that stands out to me as a lock for any of the divisions. I will say in the West, Louisiana Tech was pretty good last season. They finished out their season strong. They shut out Miami in their bowl game, and they almost made the conference championship. They just missed out. In the East, it's completely wide open. I picked Marshall because they were pretty good last season. I think they finished second or third in their division, and Lane Kiffin is leaving FAU, so I think FAU, the division winner last year, is going to be a lot weaker, so I picked Marshall. And I think I would give Louisiana Tech the upper hand here, but another game where it could be exciting. And the Mid-American Conference, final conference here, also known as the weakest conference, definitely. Another conference where it's completely wide open. This was just a shot in the dark. You really have no idea who's going to win this conference. It could literally be anyone. It could be anyone. Besides Akron, it could be anyone. I picked Central Michigan from the West because they won their division last year, and they've been doing pretty good since they got their new head coach, I think a year or two ago. He brought them to the conference championship game. They end up losing, but they're probably going to build on that for motivation, so I put them in this game. East, I put Kent State. Pretty decent program. They beat Utah State in their bowl game. The East Division just is terrible. It could be anyone. Same with the West Division. The West Division's pretty bad too, but the East Division is just even worse in my opinion. So this could be anybody. I put Kent State just because of their good performance in their bowl game. But yeah, I would give the edge to Central Michigan here. Anyway, guys, that's it for now. Thank you for joining in. Make sure to check out all my other videos, and please do like and subscribe. Again, in the MAC, I had Kent State versus Central Michigan. Conference USA, Louisiana Tech versus Marshall. Sun Belt, Louisiana versus App State. Mountain West, Boise State versus San Diego State. American Athletics, Cincinnati versus UCF. Pac-12, Arizona State versus Oregon. ACC, Clemson versus North Carolina. Big 12, Red River rematch. Big 10, Ohio State versus Wisconsin, and SEC, I had Alabama versus Georgia. All matchups would be pretty exciting in my opinion. I really don't see one that would be very boring or a blowout. So I think they would all be pretty good matchups, and that's what I like. But that's it for now, guys. Thanks for joining in, and please make sure to like and subscribe.